Okay. All right. So I am here with my good friend, Miguel Barthelery. And so, Miguel, I'm going to let you share a little bit about your background, but I know it's extensive in that you have a PhD in molecular medicine,
Hmm.
and you were doing your postdoc at Harvard, and you left Harvard to go back to Paris or to France, where you're from. Is that correct?
That's right.
And then you
So,
embarked on a healing journey.
hmm yeah, so the journey, well, I don't know if it never stopped or never really started. It's difficult to tell. Um, uh, but something happened definitely after I received my PhD. I'm a graduate from Penn State University. And my postdoc was a sort of a joint postdoc, sort of, where half of my time I spent at Harvard and the other Harvard Medical School at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, and the other half was at Novartis in Cambridge on the other side of the river. Uh, was actually funded. My postdoc was funded by the private industry, so I have a pretty good idea of what's going on in the private pharmaceutical industry. I understand, and actually I think I have a pretty compassionate eye on that, because they're wonderful people working in that for that industry. But what happened with me was that what I was doing for myself in my personal life became it didn't match really with what I was doing in the lab, because my background is biochemistry. I have a bachelor's degree in biochemistry and molecular biology, and most biochemists are really into nutrition and metabolism and stuff like that. That's pretty much what we study most of the time.
Right.
And so I had been experimenting with my diet pretty much ever since I started studying biochemistry.
At
Um,
what age would you say that was, in your early 20s?
yeah, my early 20s.
Okay.
Yeah, I was never big on eating meat. That was never really my thing. As a matter of fact, it was a point of contention with my mother, who was a carnivore and a nurse. So you know, uh, she was definitely formatted in the idea that you should be eating a certain amount of animal protein a day. And her loving meat in the first place, it made it very difficult for her that her firstborn just didn't want to have anything to do with me. So that was something already. I remember having it was a big subject growing up. People thought I was a picky eater,
Yeah.
which I thought was the stupidest thing, because I would eat any vegetable.
Right.
What kid eats all vegetables? I just
Yeah.
didn't want to eat any type of meat. Or I was very picky about the meats I would eat. I love fish or eggs or stuff like that, but red meat, and when the black meat in a chicken or something, I was like, no, it's just not for me. And so I wasn't. I didn't feel like I was a picky eater, because I love vegetables. I love
Right.
fruit. Um, but anyway, so that was sort of where I started with the whole meat thing, and then I
So,
started eating meat again when I was 17.
okay.
So just to give you an idea of how it came about, because I felt like, well, I was starting working out and everything, and you're like, okay,
Trying to
you
put
get
on some
protein,
muscle. Yeah.
yeah, and it's like, oh, maybe I need to eat meat again, and I started eating meat. I was 17 or something, and I was picky with the meat I would eat, but I was, sort of started to eat that again. And the moment I left home, actually, when I left home to study in the United States, uh, and with the studies I was involved in college, it became clear to me that it didn't really matter if it were animal or plant-based proteins. And as a matter of fact, it seemed more logical to have plant-based proteins as the primates that we are.
Did you ever encounter any health issues when you started to eat the animal protein, or did you ever embark on the healing journey specifically because
No.
you encountered any health issues?
Mm-mm.
No. Okay.
As a matter of fact, I think that somehow I put the health on the back burner. Number one, because I worked out,
Okay.
so health was never an issue.
Right.
When you work out, you can pretty much eat whatever you want and you'll be fine
Right.
to a certain degree
Yeah.
until a certain point. And I was young enough that didn't matter.
Unless you're poisoned by medication.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But as a matter of fact, I did have health issues. I had asthma as a kid.
Okay.
Um, I had asthma, but that's not because of animal protein. That's because of cooked starches, which is another topic.
Okay.
So my idea was I was always interested in health and everything because my parents being in the, my mom being a nurse, my dad was a special educator, so everything to do with psychology of kids and stuff like that. Health and food was always a topic at home, and even in my extended family it was very, very clear, in at least in my family, that what you put in your mouth conditioned your health status.
Okay.
Very difficult to explain, but
So
that's
that's
really what was then the background. Yeah.
that's very interesting to me because what I find when I encounter a lot of these people who are healers is
Mm-hmm.
that there's like something encoded in their DNA that's like the conversation was like the family unit had already had kind of that
Yeah.
conversation or something like that. So
Yeah.
do you find that to be true? Like, do you know anything about like your ancestry or anything?
So that would be interesting to you, because I didn't realize that because I didn't grow up with him. But
Yeah.
my mom's father, um, who's Native American, uh, he, which my mom told me a couple of years ago that we were talking about something else over the phone, and she mentioned, she's like, "Oh, but your grandfather was a, a healer or some sort when he back in Martinique." And I was like, "What?
Yeah.
How come you never told me that?" And yeah, he people came to my grandparents' house to, could be women who were pregnant and needed a place to stay until they were able to deliver the baby, and they would actually pay for the dowry if they needed one, and people who had got sick for whatever reason, they come to my grandfather's and my grandmother's house, and my grandfather would go and get the plants that they needed to get back together. My
Gotcha.
grandfather, healed my mom her entire life with plants and with fasting plants and stuff like that, and purges.
Yeah.
That, that was and I didn't know that. I had no idea that it happened, and
Huh.
she mentioned that on a conversation that we could have missed altogether, and I still wonder why that didn't ever cross her mind.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is that he never liked meat, which I didn't know. My mom told me that my grandfather ate meat because his wife cooked meat, and his wife was a carnivore as well, and she was a type 1 diabetic, of course, because
Right.
she liked meat so much, but he just ate a little bit of what she cooked because he loved his wife, but he kept telling her, I'd rather you not do that.
Right.
But he would just eat it anyway. But that was if it was left alone on its own devices, it would never ever cook meat ever.
Gotcha.
So that was, yeah. So like you said, there's something there that I'm 42 this year, and I only learned about that a couple of years
So
ago.
something was passed down to you essentially.
It it sort of looks like that way.
Yeah. So tell me about so you moved from Boston, you went to Paris,
Yeah.
and you somehow came across this lady
Yeah.
who has now pretty much changed your life, right?
Oh,
This is kind
yeah,
of like
yeah,
this
she
is
definitely has.
now what you do for a living.
Yeah.
Is this
Yeah.
correct? Okay.
Yeah. So when I was working at that pharmaceutical industry, it became more and more clear to me that how I was living my own life. I was a spinning instructor. I was working out like every day of the week except for the weekends. I would be really into I was including green juices in my diet.
Hmm.
I cut off all the meat. I was like, I don't need that. I'm gonna make the juices and everything. And everything that I started, it wasn't something that I could describe. It's something in me shifted where I completely lost interest in what I was doing in the lab. It was super interesting on a intellectual level,
Yeah.
but I didn't care anymore
Yeah.
enough to actually do the bench work. I was like, and it
Do you
was
do you
tough.
think you were like removed from the matrix a little bit?
It
Like it was
felt,
like
well, I was never quite in, I think.
okay. All right.
If I may say so myself. I Speaking of which, when that movie came out, I remember coming out of the theater like I was thunderstruck, and my friends were all talking about how great the special effects were and how great the animation was, and another friend of mine was like, "You guys don't understand what that movie was about. This has nothing to do with special effect. Like
Yeah.
this is like." Yeah, it made sense to me back then in a way that, and that trilogy is it's something, it's a reference for me. So
Right.
it's funny that you should mention that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Same here.
the I think that the idea that um, it was more subtle than that.
Okay.
Um,
Was it maybe
Actually,
like your soul now knew the direction of its path maybe more?
so again, good point. I It became more and more clear to me that I needed to go back to Europe,
Yeah.
and and I was trying to find a way to find a job where I could at least go back and forth from Boston to Europe, or even from New York or wherever. Uh, I mean, I had been, but at that point, I had been in the United States for 13 years, right?
Yeah.
So I had
Right.
my life, I had my friends, I had a great apartment in Boston, I had a great life,
Yeah.
and there was no reason for me to leave that. And everybody kept telling me, "Why do you want to come back?" I said, "I don't know." And
Mm.
then because I was tired of giving that answer, I started to tell people, well, try to come up with an answer. And I would tell, well, it'd be great if I could just, apply the fact that I speak French and I speak English, and kind of put that in my work life. And I want to travel more, and I want to do this and that. And at that point, I was the vice president of the Harvard Graduate Consulting Club. So I was interested in management consulting. And we actually, being vice president of that club, we did have real management consulting cases that we were pursuing pro bono for a lot of companies around the Boston area, including Novartis, actually. But we did a lot of pro bono work just to get trained into the management consulting world. And so I looked into that and see if I could go back to Europe with that route. And everything on the paper was right. Nothing worked.
Mm.
That was the strangest thing. Like when people actually sought me out to interview for positions in either in management consulting or in pharmaceutical industry or stuff like that,
Hmm.
and nothing worked out. And it was weird to me. It was like, I don't understand. Like and then maybe it's the ostrich in me, trying to put my head in the sand all the time. But I felt like, okay, whatever, we'll see where that leads. And at some point, it came to a point where the only way for me to stay in the United States would have been, because I didn't want to pay for a green card. I was like, I'm not spending $5,000 to pay for a green card. Sorry.
Right.
I think if the United States doesn't recognize that spending 13 years using taxpayer dollars to get an education is not enough for me to stay here, then,
Right. And
you
you
know,
have a lot of value to offer.
yeah. And I felt
Right.
it's that what that book says, if he's not that into you, then move
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. Move on. Right. Yeah.
And so I decided to So it came to a point where I was like, I just had blown all my shots, and I had a month to make a decision. Either I went back to academia, asked my old boss to hire me for a few months, and kind of like, eat dirt and figure out what I was going to do next, or I was just going to leave everything and go to Europe and go back to Europe and start fresh there. And I had a month left to decide, and I told my friend, a friend of mine, a very good friend of mine, I told her, look, I need to come back. I don't know what I'm going to do. Can I crash at your place? And she said, yeah, sure. So I came back to Europe. And it was, again, I felt compelled to go back to Europe. And I came to a point where I had to justify that decision because it didn't make any sense.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't know how else to say that. I just felt compelled to come back.
Yeah. So when you went back, you ran into this woman,
Yeah.
and basically she now is mentoring you.
Yes.
And
Actually, we work together now.
oh, you work together. And so, uh, I mean, tell me a little bit about what you guys are doing. So basically, you're healing people with all types of ailments. Like, can
All
you just
types
give a
of
kind
things.
of list of things that you're healing people with?
Yeah, so changing people's diet, that's one of the pillars of the whole thing. Aromatherapy is a big one.
Okay.
It's just surprising how much you can do with this aromatherapy. Phytotherapy as well. Energy healing for some people.
Okay.
I've learned it. I don't practice it on a regular basis,
Okay.
but every once in a while it's useful. For me at least, for my patients, and at least because I learned that with somebody, another great guy in Paris. Um, uh, I know a lot of healers because of that, because I know
Right.
that guy, and I know people who actually trained with me. So if I can't do it myself, or if I don't have time to do it myself, I have people I can recommend people with that. Of course, the Wim Hof method with the breathing exercise, the breath work is a big one.
Right. So you guys
And
have the pillars, which are oxygen, right?
yeah,
Basically, elimination,
yeah,
diet,
yeah,
and uh, what else was there? Was there one? There was one other
rest,
pillar. Rest. Oh
rest.
yeah, sleep. Yeah, rest. Okay.
So that's exactly. So that's what that's Irene's great way of getting people to understand what's going on. A kid when a kid is born, the kid the baby will teach you everything you need to know about health.
Mm-hmm.
And if these four pillars work, your body will regenerate and will start healing itself.
Mm-hmm.
Healing is not a mind thing. It's more the mind learning to step away from the what the body needs to do.
Right.
And the four pillars, you're right. First thing a baby does is it's taking your first breath. So it's breathing. It's the very first thing.
Right.
That's why breath work
Belly
is,
breaths through the
yeah,
nose, right?
through the
Yeah.
nose. Yeah. And that's why breath work is so powerful, because it's up there. That's the first thing you do. That's your first food.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do a lot with breath work only with that.
Right.
Second thing, of course, is eating. So the baby's going to suck his mom's milk, and it's going to be eating the food that is the most appropriate for you.
Mm-hmm.
Third, of course, then the baby rests and falls asleep, and that's another pillar that you need to take care of. And the fourth being elimination. So when the kid wakes up after sleeping, the kid has pooped or peed or some or both,
Right.
and so you need to be able to eliminate the residues of your digestion, but you also need to eliminate poisons, you need to eliminate toxins, and you need to eliminate things that are not needed by your body and not wanted by your body.
Right.
And that's, if those four pillars work, then the body is able to regenerate, the body is able to repair and heal. And in the what she taught me, and what I practice now is, and I tell people, I'm not here to heal you. I'm here to help you, and I'm here
Give
to
you what your
teach you,
body needs, basically.
yeah, to teach you how to keep these four pillars straight.
Right.
And if you do that, the body's going to do the rest.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think anybody should take responsibility for healing anybody, even
Right.
yourself.
Right. Yeah.
It's your body. Your
Yeah.
body is a this is my personal view, and that's only me, but I hate it when people talk about the body like it's a thing, and I hate it when people talk about the body as the unconscious.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's another consciousness. It's a
Right.
it's a it's another consciousness that you cohabitate with,
Yep.
and that consciousness only job is to keep you alive.
Right.
That's its only job.
It's a
Keep you
self-healing
alive.
machine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
keep you alive and keep you balanced.
Right.
And sometimes if you've ever, I'm sure you've played that game, where you put your head on the tip of a bat of baseball and turn around
Oh
and you
yeah.
try
Yeah.
to walk straight.
Right.
Yeah. So you can argue that the person who's trying to walk a straight line after doing that can't balance himself, and the body doesn't know what it's doing. As a
Right.
matter of fact, the body's trying all the time to keep you balanced,
Right.
but you fucked up to start with, right?
Right.
So it's trying to do something, and of course it looks like crap in the end.
Yeah.
But it was doing its work, which is trying to keep you balanced when you've been turning around in a circle and making the body not knowing what's up and down, right?
Right.
So that's what happens with health. We do so much damage to our bodies. We do so much damage to these four pillars that the body has to try and compensate constantly to that assault on
Yeah.
on its own balance, its own equilibrium, and that takes, and then the body has to prioritize.
Right.
And it's like, you know what, I'm gonna have to do this first, because if I don't do that, then everything else goes to crap.
Right.
I'll give you an example, not to extend myself too much, but cholesterol levels, for instance.
Yeah.
So that's going to be part of my next book. I'll talk more about the lymph and stuff like that. But
Right.
people see, somebody's cholesterol level, being like super high or something. But oh, that's not good, because then you get atherosclerosis, and
Yeah.
then you can die from
Clog. Yeah. Your arteries
clog.
clog. And yeah.
Yeah, and they don't understand that the reason why the body is making so much cholesterol,
It's to heal.
even if you don't, yeah, even if you
Yeah.
don't take cholesterol, if you don't eat animal protein, is because your arteries are weak,
Yeah.
and it needs some type of a glue, some type of a something to make sure it
Adhesive.
doesn't rupture. Yeah.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
it's gonna make a lot of cholesterol to make sure that your arteries are not going to rupture. And of course, when you take statins, the first side effect of statins are the first
Brain
side effect,
fog.
brain aneurysm. It's the first thing,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yep.
So it looks like your body is screwing up, and actually it's not. It's trying to compensate for something that you do that is wrong,
Right.
and it's thinking that it's temporary, and of course it's not,
Right.
because you're not supposed to live like that
Right.
for a long time. And
Right.
your body has short or middle term type of remedies for things,
Yep.
because it's assuming that you will cooperate. Your body is going to scratch your back, and you're going to scratch
Right.
it.
You're gonna take care of it.
But
Same
that's
with
not what people
same
do.
with blood pressure, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same for blood pressure.
Yeah.
High blood pressure is when you have a lot of starch residues behind your arteries, so your tissues are starved from fluids, and that keeps the pressure up. The minute you get rid of all these residues, then the flow starts to come back into your tissues, and then the pressure comes down.
Right.
That's why when you exercise, you don't have high blood pressure, because you put that extra work on your lymphatic system, and you sort of force it to work more, so you don't you get that, basically, that the pressure is going to be sucked up in your tissue, and you won't have that high blood pressure issue.
So
So
yeah. So one thing I always find interesting too is because, a lot of people who are dehydrated,
mhm,
the first symptom or sign of, like, on a cellular level, first it happens
yeah,
on the body, then it goes cellular,
yeah,
is inflammation. And when
yep,
the inflammation starts, the blood pressure goes up.
yep,
And then they go to the doctor, and the doctor gives them the pill,
yeah,
and the pill which is toxic,
Yeah.
and goes into the cells, and then the cells have to decide, like we're talking about, the cells have to say, hey,
Yeah.
how do I take care of you? Do I get rid of the toxins? Do I get rid of the water? And then it turns into another battle.
Yeah.
Right.
So what you have to understand is that the pharmaceutical industry doesn't know how to help the body. That's not its job. And
Right.
it's not, I'm not saying that's an evil plan from somebody who's throwing his mustache. That's not what I'm
Right.
saying.
Yeah.
I'm saying that it's not the strategy of the pharmaceutical industry. As a scientist, when I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, the strategy was to inhibit things.
Right.
It was to block things. We
Yep.
would have targets in terms of proteins and in terms of proteins and enzymes. We have targets to block their action.
Right.
So when you block a protein, you block the body.
Yeah.
Plants work in a totally different, with a totally different strategy. You know, if you could argue that plants have a strategy, but it's when you give somebody an essential oil, you're not inhibiting anything.
Mm. You're stimulating like gene
Yeah,
expressions.
exactly. So it's you're helping the body.
Yeah.
When you give somebody a plant, you're helping the body. You're not preventing anything from happening. That's a very new paradigm in our mindset. When somebody
Right.
is sick, to prevent something from happening. That started in the 50s. But
Right.
before that, when people got sick and they were healed, they didn't live in cities. They live in the countryside, for instance. And they were healed with plants
Yeah.
and with kind of like grandmother type remedies. The mindset was always to help the body.
Right.
And that has to completely change. Instead, we block the body from doing something. We
Yeah.
even block bacteria from doing their work.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's their job, to clean up where your immune system can't.
Right. And that's led us down a dangerous path now.
Yeah.
Because we've created these super bugs and
Exactly.
yeah. Cool. So here's a question for you. So I have a
Yep.
client that has a certain type of breast cancer, and I can't remember what it was called, but it went into her stomach, and she was having stomach issues.
Okay.
And
That happens a lot, actually.
she is she's looking at the normal medical process, and she's
Yeah.
going down to Jacksonville here in Florida.
Oh.
And I said, I always just put it out there, like, have you ever looked into alternative methods? And she was like, well, I'm looking at a lot of things. There's a ton of different options. Is that something that just by giving those healing steps or processes that could be healed through the plants, through the breathing, through elimination?
So somebody who develops cancer, number one, we need to define what cancer is, because, and I'm not saying that I'm going to do that. I'm saying that it when you get a biopsy and look at it under the microscope, it, even though we have ways of determining if the sample is cancerous or not, it's not that easy.
Right.
And nowadays, doctors, because of the pressure for diagnosis, they would rather declare something cancerous just in case
Mm-hmm.
they missed something,
Right.
especially in the United States, where you could be sued for missing a diagnosis.
Yeah.
We don't have that problem in France just yet, but it might happen. Well,
Wait, so to bring it back, actually,
yeah.
a good way of putting it is cancer is the body's way of protecting itself, right? Would you say that?
So yeah. So well, okay. Let my definition of disease um, is that a disease is only three things. Only these three things.
Okay.
The disease is the blockage, the slowing down or the hindrance of a elimination process.
Okay.
So if the body's trying to eliminate something and it's blocked, it's slowed down, or if it's prevented in any reason, for example, through medication,
Mm-hmm.
then you have a problem. You create disease.
Right.
So basically, a disease is the manifestation of the body trying to cleanse itself but not being able to finish the job.
Mm.
It's stuck somewhere.
Right.
So anytime you're fighting disease, you're fighting your body.
Mm-hmm.
And when people tell me that, oh, you need to fight cancer and walk
Right.
against cancer and
Yeah.
walk against this or that, I'm like, you're walking against your body.
Yeah. And when you go there, they have donuts and a bunch of crap for you to eat while you're walking for cancer.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's always that puts a smile on my face.
But go
So
ahead. Go ahead.
so because that's the way your body the body is stuck there, and usually it's stuck there because of vaccination, because of constant bombarding of people's bodies with anti-inflammatory compounds, with antibiotics,
So you're saying
and
like
so on and so.
Advil,
Yeah. So all these
ibuprofen.
things that stop the body from doing something,
Yeah.
um, then the body can't. So think of your body as a kid, and actually your body is your inner child in a way.
Right.
um the, your body, whenever you give it, let's say that you have a kid who's having a rough life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anytime the kid was wanted to do something, an adult would just slap him in the face, across the face,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Every single time the body is trying to speak, he would get a slap in his face. At some point the kid is not going to stop talking.
Right.
Just gonna stop talking.
Yeah.
And the kid is gonna start being very sneaky.
Mm-hmm.
Like a smart kid will know, well, if I talk, I'll get, I get beat up, so I'd rather not talk and do whatever I want, but I just want to make sure that I'm not gonna get caught.
Right.
And that's sort of how what the body is. So the body has been prevented ever since the kid, is born, and people give him anti-inflammatory drugs when there's a fever or whatever. Then the kid just stops. The body stops responding, or it responds less and less, or starts finding back doors way of doing things. And whenever you try to to uh, get the connection back to your body, it's kind of a silly thing for a kid that has had, or a teenager that has that past, to beat them up again when they can't, solve a long division, for instance, right?
Right.
You're not going to slap them across the face again. You're going to help them. And it's the same thing when your body can't finish the work that he wants to do, because it has not been able to do that your entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Then instead of stopping it and slapping it again, you're going to try and help it. So if disease is the blockage, slowing down, or a hindrance, or of an elimination process, when you want to work, when you're talking health, what you're going to do is unblock what is blocked. You're going to speed up what is slowed down, and you're going to resume what's been stopped or hindered. So without plants, what happens, and without cleanses, what happens when you give the body what it really needs, is that you might resume the old diseases that you had before.
Okay.
So it's kind of like it looks backwards. It looks like, oh, I'm doing great, 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 and then all of a sudden you going.
Basically a
That's a great.
Herx reaction.
Yeah.
Herxheimer. So it's
Yeah.
basically like you feel the same problem you had when you
Yeah.
got the disease.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just reversed in the
Yeah.
reverse.
So the idea is that when you use plants and when you use cleanses, you help the body out.
Mm.
So you finish the job. And sometimes if you use cleanses the right way, you won't even see these manifestation of disease starting up again, because you're gonna keep clearing the lymph. The circulating lymph is gonna clear it as it gets loaded by the body regularly to be expelled later.
Mm-hmm.
So um, plants are going to plants do that. Essential oils in particular, they will trigger gene expression. They will reactivate um, um, organ function. Uh, what our essential oils do on gene expression is just astounding.
Mm.
They will also, so people talk about certain certain essential oils like tea tree or cinnamon or or oregano, like antibiotics,
Right.
natural antibiotics. They're not anti anything. They're,
They're
I would
pro.
say, they're orthobiotics. So
Okay.
ortho, the suffix ortho in Greek mean right angle. It make something right.
Yeah.
So it puts the balance back in the microbiome, in the diversity of microbes you have. So it's going to prevent by helping the body eliminate faster.
Right.
It's going to prevent the accumulation of the bacteria, pathogens, and we'll talk about maybe later.
Yeah.
Um, it's going to prevent them from proliferating too much and help the good ones establish some sort of a barrier against them. So
Okay.
it's never going to kill everything. If you give somebody an antibiotic, you kill everybody.
Mm. Yeah.
And they're just as effective. In the end, no more infection.
Yeah.
But one of them killed everybody, and
Yeah.
the other one. So it's difference between having a global war where everybody dies
Right.
and then there's no more war, or having being able to declare a peace treaty.
Right.
At the end, no more war, but
Yeah.
you have two different scenarios there.
Yep. And one's a win-win, and the other's like a lose-win.
Lose.
Yeah.
Well,
Lose-lose.
yeah, in a way.
There's a
Yeah.
way to. You can look at it both ways, I guess.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, so your body needs to be able to eliminate residues, and we focus a lot on acids and alkaline diet and acidic diet and stuff. That's
Hmm.
half of the story, and
Yeah.
that's actually not the very interesting story.
Right.
Uh, well, if I may say so myself, I think acids are a great story to tell because it's fairly easy to get rid of acids.
Okay.
Fairly easy. So you can
Yeah.
alkalinize your diet. Breath work is an amazing way to get rid of acids.
Yeah.
If people want more information on that, they can um, listen to what Wim Hof has to say about it.
Yeah. You
But
know what I did yesterday, which I've done a few times, is I do the Wim Hof breathing in a
Mhm.
hyperbaric oxygen chamber,
Oh
and it
God, how was
just takes
that?
it to the next level. And I did it actually yesterday while microdosing on
Good for
mushrooms.
you.
Yeah. So I was
Awesome.
experimenting for
Yeah,
the book, kind of like seeing what
yeah.
works. But
I'm actually experimenting with essential oils, and that's another thing we can talk
okay, yeah, I could do that. Yeah.
about.
Cool.
Yeah.
So getting rid of acids,
Acids
breath.
is fairly easy.
Yeah.
If our bodies only had to deal with acids, it would take its toll on the gene pool and the individual life.
Hmm.
It would definitely take its toll, but the body could sort of cope, and the body would still have ways to tell the mind to stop. People used to have gout when they ate too much meat.
Right.
They don't anymore because of anti-inflammatory drugs that
Mm.
we've been taking. So the body doesn't have that response anymore, even
Yeah.
though we eat 5 to 10 times more meat product than we used to.
Right.
So the body, you just cut down, you just cut that particular red flag for the body, and then you don't know anymore when you eat too much animal product.
Right.
Um, so, uh, and I'll give you an example. I'll try to make it as short as possible. Is the Inuits, right?
Right.
Inuits are renowned meat eaters. That's very much all they eat, or
Yeah.
all they used to eat.
They live off fat. Right.
Yeah, they ate and that's actually what gave people the idea of the keto diet. So they eat, first of all, they didn't eat every day. Most Inuits, they would eat once a week or once every 10 days or something. They would eat the
Wow.
animals.
Yeah.
First of all, the meat was raw,
Hmm.
was built, and I think some of the animal parts would be cooked, but I don't think I don't remember exactly. I need to do really research on that. But anyway, most of the meat they ate was raw. Number one, and number two, they were not sedentary. They actually are used to be a people that actually traveled around. So in the summer and spring and summertime, the shamans would have access to plants that would grow, and these people would have cleanses.
Mm.
They would cleanse their body uh, off of all the things they'd be eating for the entire winter and the entire fall.
Right.
They have cleanses. They had fasting. There was a whole ritual around around cleansing the body after the cold season.
Right.
The minute that um, the the minute that colonization took over, basically, they started being more sedentary,
Mm.
and doing so, they started cooking their foods, the meats, but they started, what's more important, they started eating cooked starches,
Gotcha.
and that's when you know the crap hit the fan.
Yeah.
Because the minute you add cooked starches to your diet, you clog your body. You start clogging you throw a wrench into the body, the body's mechanisms of cleanses.
So give us some of the worst offenders of cooked starches. I know we
All of
talked about all of them.
them.
So I know we talked about rice,
Right.
right?
Yeah. So the one that people talk a lot about is gluten. So they think about wheat, and they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I'm gluten free. I'm gluten free. Great."
Yeah.
But then they eat rice instead.
Right.
So gluten is interesting because so whenever you cook a starch, so
Hmm.
any biochemist would tell you the same thing. Anybody who's ever worked in a lab would tell you the one thing you never ever want to do with your sample is heat it up. You always
Because it
work on ice.
changes the
Yeah,
molecular structure,
it's
right?
absolutely. And the
Yeah.
only time you will heat up your sample is because you put a compound in it, like urea is one that we use usually, or soap, that will prevent the molecule from reacting with one another.
Okay.
So, but if you don't have these, uh, we call them denaturing agents. If you don't have denaturing agents, the macromolecules, the big molecules, are very reactive, and then they're gonna start cross-linking and bind to one another and start reacting and become things that your body doesn't know what to do with.
Mm.
So that happens with protein.
Unnatural.
Yeah, the body just doesn't. That's a UFO for your body. You just
Right.
present him something he doesn't recognize. He doesn't even have the enzymatic tool to deal with it.
Okay.
Um, and so that happens with proteins, obviously, but also happens with starches. And it actually happens even more with starches because starches, uh, uh, um, anything that is in the sugar family is super reactive.
Okay.
They're aldehydes and alcohols, and these are reactive molecules. So they're going to cross-link very, very easily and just form weird stuff.
Okay.
And it's going to start gelling. So whenever you want to make a sauce thicker, what do?
Yeah.
You add a spoonful
Yeah.
of
We use arrowroot.
yeah, you could root, or you could
Yeah.
use something like what's it called again? Corn flour
Yeah. That's
or
what. Yeah.
vanilla flour, and it makes it thicker.
Yep.
That's exactly what happens to your lymph.
That makes sense now. Oh, that's a great analogy. That's perfect. So here's a question for you. So your family's from Martinique.
Yes.
So being from the West Indies,
Yeah.
um, so I know like my wife's from the West Indies as well,
Yeah.
and they have, cassava,
Yeah.
right? Um, and that's like a staple. Like they have the
Yeah.
provisions,
Yeah.
right? So that's what they lived off,
Yeah.
basically. Is that not a good starch? Like, was that affecting them?
Yeah. Any starch. Any
Yeah.
starch.
Okay.
So it was never okay. So that's the point I'm trying to make, because I think people sometimes tell me, well, we've been eating cooked food forever, and I'm like, no, we haven't been eating cooked food forever, number one, and number two, these were very different conditions.
Right.
Before the 50s, before the Industrial Revolution, if we think about it, but it really sped up in the 50s. People would eat simple staple foods.
Mm-hmm.
So for lunch and for dinner, usually what did you have? Some sort of a soup,
Right.
something that was boiled in water,
Right. Vegetables.
vegetables,
Mm.
even if it was meat or fish, but it was a soup of some sort
Right.
with bread. Some sort of a bread. Could be cassava bread. It could be pretty much, it could be anything, but some sort of a bread. But the main dish was something boiled in water. Um, that's number one. So we all eat like Louis the 14th right now.
That's true. Yeah.
We all have an appetizer, an entree, and a dessert.
Yeah.
That's new.
Yeah.
That is the first time ever in people's lives that everybody is eating like that.
Yeah. Even the
That's
poor people of today are
yes,
eating
eat like
better
that.
than the people did 120 years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, better. So
Yeah. More,
rich,
I should say.
more,
Yeah.
worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the uh, the the um the people used to have a very simple diet. Number one, very simple. The food was very simple. Obviously, everything was organic.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
You have to
uh,
worry about pesticides
nope. People ate
blocking.
exactly, and
Yeah.
people ate a lot of fruit because it was cheap.
Right.
So they ate a lot of fruit and vegetables because it was a cheap stuff.
Yeah.
Meat was super expensive.
Right.
So they did eat starches because that was cheap as well. But again, there was a lot of water in what they ate, and they ate so they had simple food. They had um, uh, access to fruits and vegetables mostly because these were good fillers, and they knew that.
Yeah.
They everything was organic.
Right.
And when you lived in the countryside, which was back before the 50s, most people lived in the countryside.
Right.
Very few people lived in the cities.
Yeah.
People who lived in the countryside didn't have the means to go to see the doctor. So when they get sick, what did they do? They fasted
Yep.
and they took plants.
Right.
So at no point, even though they ate cooked food, at no point in their lives, they would go against the body's need to cleanse.
Yeah.
Whenever the body needed to cleanse, they would sit that one out, rest, and fast, and take plant medicine.
Right.
So even if the staple foods were not right for them, they did help the body cleanse when it needed to. And most indigenous people actually had cleansing practices that they did, especially for kids, like 2, 3, 4 times a year, kids will cleanse, sometimes with seawater.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there were different types, and with oils, with seawater, with
Right.
plants, there were cleanses that was important,
Yeah.
and 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 that makes a world of difference because nowadays people have very complex types of food, very processed.
Right.
Everybody is able to process food at
Yeah.
home. You can broil, you have an oven, you can do a lot of stuff. You also everybody has a can bake and everything. We have recipe books and everything. So everybody has a very easy access to very processed food, even if it's homemade, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so food that is very processed, that is very poor in water.
Mm-hmm.
They most of what they eat is not organic and is
Right.
very processed, so it's very denatured from its original form.
Right.
When people get sick, they have access to medicine that actually stops the body from doing what it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
So they stop eating. They're taking plants, and people never fast ever. When people get sick, what does the medical community tell them? You need to eat more.
Yeah. When I was in the hospital, my intestines was twisted. They gave me at the hospital bacon, coffee, pancakes, and I think there was a gelatin like Jello thing. And at the time I was like like laughing. I was like, are they trying to kill me?
Yeah.
Like, what are they doing? And I obviously, I didn't
The
eat
only
any.
thing they do right, I think, at the hospital, I don't know if they do it in the United States, but I know what they do in France is that after 6 p.m., you don't eat anymore. Your last meal is at 5.
Right. Yeah.
That's probably the right thing, the only right thing they do. And the only time they tell you to fast is because you're headed to surgery and they don't want you to vomit on the table.
Right.
But
So let me go
these are
back
the
to.
reasons why. That's just my point.
Oh
That's
yeah,
the
go ahead.
reason why you can't compare the cooking habits or the food habits of our grandparents with the food habits we have now. We
Right.
eat food, yeah, but in a very, very different conditions.
Yep.
And we never cleanse our bodies. We never let the body cleanse what it needs to. And
Mm-hmm.
whenever it's trying to, we stop it. So obviously, we're gonna have much, much, much more problems than they did.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense. So back to the question I had. So if someone has cancer and they're basically replicating these cells,
Yeah.
and is that something that can be reversed, stopped in its tracks by
Yes.
just giving the body what it needs?
So that's half of the story. You first need to give the body what it needs. It's like having a car, like a diesel car, or no, like a regular car, and having put in your engine, diesel gas, right?
Right.
So the first thing you need to do is stop. Is putting regular gas in your car. That's the first thing you need to do.
Right.
You're not gonna keep putting diesel in your engine.
Right.
But second thing you need to do is cleanse your engine.
Right.
So it's one thing to give the body what it needs to start regenerate, but you need to cleanse the body. And you won't cleanse the body until the body has enough energy to do so.
Right.
So the first thing that's going to happen is to give and stop eating crap and give the body what it needs, and that's going to give the body energy, and the energy is going to rise and rise and rise and rise. And whenever the body hits an excess of energy, that's when it's going to start cleansing. So there are two cases when your body cleanses.
It's going to start cleansing?
Yeah, it's going to
Okay.
start the process. At least it's going to start and resume something.
Okay.
So the first thing that the body does, the two cases when the body starts a cleansing mechanism on its own. The first one is when you have excess energy. You've eaten a lot of fruits, or you're on vacation, you're going to the sun, it's summer,
Mm-hmm.
you're taking time, you're resting. So all the pillars are getting better and better.
Mm-hmm.
You toggle above a certain threshold that
Mm-hmm.
is variable between one person and another,
Mm-hmm.
and then all of a sudden your body cleanses. Second case when your body does that, and that's one of the reasons people, they're like, oh, I went on vacation, now I'm sick. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, you had access energy,
Processing out all the crap.
and now your body is able to get rid of whatever it needed to get rid of.
Yeah.
So it looks like a disease because it's just, the process is slowed down or is incomplete or is blocked,
Yeah.
and then so it's disease.
Right.
The second case when the body is going to do that is when your body has to deal with a shock. It could be emotional shock, it could be
Trauma.
physical shock, it could be
Yeah.
trauma, it could be thermal shock.
Okay.
That's the interesting part about the Wim Hof method.
Yeah.
Thermal shock is another one, and
Yeah.
the body's going to try and cleanse because it's, in a way, you're going to trigger the fight and flight response. You're going to trigger an impulse of internal energy to expel something.
Right.
And the body's going to do that. It's going to try to cleanse. And the cleansing mechanism is very important to understand. Normally, so you have three exhaust pipes.
Right.
You have your colon for solids,
Mm-hmm.
you have your bladder for fluids
Mm-hmm.
and things that are soluble in water. And the colon is for things that are solid or non-soluble in water. And then you have your lungs for gases.
Mm-hmm.
When your body is trying to expel mucus, and I guess that's a good segue to talking about mucus.
Okay.
When your body is trying to expel mucus, it's going to try to expel a solid through your gas pipe.
Mm-hmm.
That can't go right.
Right.
When you're having bronchitis, that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Your body's trying to expel mucus through your lungs,
Mm-hmm.
and your lungs are just made for you to expel gases. So it's going to be long and painful. It's going to be slow.
Yeah.
That's disease,
Yeah.
because that's the only way out your body was able to find. Because usually, either the person has been denied of having diarrhea as a kid several times. Every
Mm-hmm.
time the kid had diarrhea, you stopped it, you stopped it, you stopped it.
Right.
At some point, the body stopped doing that. Or sometimes the genetically it has degenerated so much that the body doesn't even consider that option.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Chinese medicine actually teaches you that if your colon is blocked, the lungs are going to take over.
Mm. So
So
that's what's going on with my son, actually.
yeah, if your son has a lot of lung problems or even sneezing and stuff, that's mucus coming out of the wrong pipe.
Yeah.
And what you want to do is make sure that the body goes back to using the right one,
Yeah.
which is, so you should have very mucusy type of diarrhea when your body tries to expel mucus.
Yeah.
It's much faster. It doesn't, and it's complicated for your body when you have food poisoning, for instance. Food poisoning
Yeah.
is usually that your body is expelling by the right outlet, but it's still too slow for
Yeah.
some reason.
Yeah. He
So
got
it's
salmonella.
different. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then the salmonella finds a perfect playground
Yeah.
because its thing is to eat mucus.
Yeah.
Bacteria eat complex carbohydrates. Um,
That's why he would
uh,
always crave carbohydrates.
yeah.
So he would
Oh,
constantly crave it so he could feed the
yeah.
beast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the animal, well, in the living on the biosphere, the organisms that are specialized in degrading complex carbohydrates are actually mushrooms or fungus.
Gotcha.
So that's a specialty. Actually, if you see a tree trunk that is dead in the forest, you'll find mushrooms growing on
Mm.
top of it.
Yeah.
That's their job. But mushroom only operate with oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
If there's no oxygen, there's no mushrooms.
Right.
There's no fungus.
Yeah.
So when there's no oxygen, who takes over? Bacteria,
Yeah.
because they can live without.
Right.
So people who have issues of uh, um, Candida albicans, for instance, then there are people who uh, tend to have not to have issues with oxygen intake in their bloodstream. Most people don't, and they will have more like bacterial infection instead.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so
So,
that's so mucus. Talk about mucus.
yeah.
Um, so you have two real poisons two real poisons for humans. First one is animal proteins. That's the first one, and the second one is cooked starches.
Okay.
And cooked starches make mucus. So it doesn't matter if it's rice or whatever. It's gonna make mucus.
Yeah.
Some mucus is lighter than others. So
Mm-hmm.
for example, gluten is very heavy. So it's
Mm-hmm.
going to stay around the lower part of the body. It's going to stay around the digestive tract. It's going to kind of hinder a lot of exchanges with the legs, the genitals, the leg area,
Yeah.
um, the colon. It's going to stay around there.
It kind of cakes on there,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
The You have other type, for example, rice and potatoes make a very light type of mucus, and that travels more around the body. It looks like rice has a tendency, the lingo, if we're going to be using a jargon in a minute for a minute, we call it uh, a tropism. So it's going to preferably stay in a certain part of your body, It doesn't mean it's not going to go in the others,
Yeah.
but it likes that area a lot. And rice loves the upper body area. It's going to love the head area.
Okay.
So people who have sinus infection, rhinitis all the time, ear infection, people who are shy, um, people who are very scared of everything,
Mm-hmm.
and autism is another one.
Mm-hmm.
Rice is bad news. Rice is going to make it worse. So
Okay.
so when people go gluten free when they have autism, for instance, at first they're going to feel better because all of a sudden the digestive tract is sort of liberated in a
Right.
way. You
Yeah.
stop poisoning the digestive system, so
Right.
you have more nutrients coming through. You have a different type of intestinal flora, of microbiome growing.
Right.
But usually the parents, because they think, and that's the way we've been brought up, the parents think that they need some sort of a starch. They're going to start eating
Right.
rice instead.
Plus, they go through withdrawals if they don't have the starches, right? And then
Yep,
they start screaming and
yep,
crying, and then the parents say,
yep,
"All right, take it."
exactly.
Yeah.
And rice is horrible for that.
Yeah.
Rice is just is bad.
Okay.
So obviously, if you take whole starches, it's not as bad,
Right.
but it's still bad.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to tell someone, except for a few exceptions, like people who are like really people who are have bad asthma, or people who are autistic or something, or people who have yeah, like mental
So,
issues,
so do you help people with autism as well with some of
yeah,
these protocols?
schizophrenia,
Okay.
autism,
Because I can.
bipolar disorder.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I considered myself like I was going to write a book.
Mm,
My book, one of the book I'm writing now is The Healing Hackers, but I was deciding whether I made it two, and the other one was going to be Autistic at 27
mm,
because I felt after researching and researching forever, I felt essentially that I became I had the symptoms of what an autistic kid did, except
mm,
I got them all after I was fully neurologically developed.
mm,
And I was able to like cognitively put the pieces together, and I started treating myself as autistic kids did, and I started healing. And so I don't know if that's connected. And this was another question I had for you is people who have the MTHFR gene mutation have
mm,
a harder time detoxificating or detoxing.
probably.
So,
Yeah.
so is that something that you guys work with too? Because a lot of autistic kids have the gene mutations a lot of times.
um so autism doesn't just drop like that from the sky. It usually it's a result of damage done by medication.
Right.
So it could be
Blocking the
vaccine. Yeah,
pathways.
yeah,
Right.
it could be a vaccine.
Yeah.
And usually it's not even the vaccine. I've seen consequences of vaccine being other than autism.
Right.
I have seen more diabetes, juvenile diabetes, coming from vaccination than autism.
Right.
But maybe because in France people eat different types of starches, because that's also something to consider.
Yeah.
What type of starches people eat? What's
Yeah.
their diet to
Right.
start with? Because to me, you really have to understand these are the two poisons: animal proteins, because they're rich in glutamate,
Hmm.
among other things, and for other reasons,
Which is a poison.
which is a poison,
Yeah.
and uh, and starch and cooked starches. And these are the two types of bullet in your magazine. Everything else is just a trigger.
Hmm.
So of course, if the magazine is loaded and you pull the trigger, you're gonna get a shot, right?
Yeah. Right.
If you take the bullets out of the gun, then you can pull the trigger all you want. Nothing's going to happen.
Hmm.
So pesticides, heavy metals, this and that, pollens, whatever. It doesn't matter. If your body's clean, it won't affect you.
Mm-hmm.
So why does he affect you and not somebody else? That's another issue.
Mm-hmm.
Because basically, when you look at your screen right now, you have three diodes in your screen. You have a red one, a blue one, and a green one, tiny little ones. And mixing the colors of these three things make the 16 million colors that you're going to have on your screen. It's the same for health. You have the crystals, or the precipitated acids. You have the mucus, and then you have your genetics,
Right.
which is a mixture between your personal history, which is epigenetic,
Mm-hmm.
and your ancestry, the
Right.
history of your ancestors, which is like hardcore genetics.
Right.
So with these three things, you'll do every single disease on earth, and it's going to look different, kind of
Right.
like the colors look different,
Right.
but you do it with these three things. So usually kids who develop autism are kids that were um, they that most of the, not always, but a lot of the times, these kids have very powerful bodies. As
Mm-hmm.
a matter of fact, somebody who is always sick is not somebody weak. It's the total opposite.
Mm.
Somebody who's sick is somebody whose body is still able to say, I need to cleanse. I need to get this out of me.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, these are the people that are the most medicated.
Right.
But the my point was that when you give the body, when a kid has had a mucousy type of diarrhea, and it's more and more difficult to find kids who are able to do that. But like
Mm-hmm.
these green diarrheas are very mucousy diarrheas.
Mm-hmm. My son
Uh,
had that. Yeah.
this is super power. A kid who has that is a kid who has a very powerful body.
My son
And
has a very powerful body.
yeah,
He was born like head up.
yeah,
Like he held his head up on the first day he was born.
yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
And somebody who has very powerful body will able to eject, to get rid of mucus through that route
Mm-hmm.
very early on, because the first thing that the kid is going to do after being born, if he's inherited a lot of the crap basically that was hanging around his mother's lymph, because a
Right.
kid develops in his mother's lymph after
Mm-hmm.
all.
Yeah.
The first thing he's going to try and do, so it's basically the kid is going to take part of the mother's load actually,
Right. The
and it's,
toxic load.
yeah, and it's going to try to get rid of it because
Yeah.
it's a small surface area
Yeah.
with the same power,
Yeah.
and it's going to be easier for the kid, and the kid will start having these diarrheas, and of course diarrhea scares everybody,
Mm-hmm.
and it's probably the scariest thing that could happen to modern medicine. Anytime somebody has diarrhea, it's you need to stop it. It's horrible. They're going to
Yeah.
dehydrate and die, which
Yeah, because
could
everyone
happen.
talks about that it's one of the number one causes of death
Yes,
in the
and it
world.
is. If it's
Yeah.
not, if you don't support the body,
Mm-hmm.
it will kill you. Yeah, true.
Right. Yeah.
But if you support the body, so you keep it hydrated and you let the thing, you don't try to stop it, you help it with plants and you help the body cleanse,
Mm-hmm.
then all this mucus comes out regularly.
Yeah.
And people and kids who develop autism a lot of the times are kids that were stopped dead in their tracks trying to expel mucus.
Mm.
Either mucus coming out of their digestive system or
Yeah.
mucus coming out of their respiratory system.
Yeah.
And they
It's,
were stopped dead in their tracks like a really strong medication, and that stunned the body.
yeah.
So the mucus didn't come out.
Yeah.
It could be from the intestines. It could be an ear infection.
Yeah.
So what happens? The mucus stays in,
Yeah.
and you have mucus in your head,
Right.
and your body goes, it just shuts down. You get glues, you get mucus in your head.
Yeah.
So you all of a sudden you get that veil on on your brain basically, and you
Yeah.
can't communicate, and you start
Going into yourself.
going to yourself,
Yeah.
and because you're intoxicated, you will only you basically ask for the type of food that
Feeds.
flavors your lymph.
Yeah. Feeds the The
So
beast, as I say.
right. So if
Yeah.
your lymph is loaded with mucus, you're going to love mucus,
Yeah.
mucusy type of fruit. So you're going to be eating tons of starches.
Yeah.
That's going to be your kryptonite.
Right.
So the bad news is that you're going to be, and if your lymph is loaded with acids, you're going to love acid generating foods.
Mm.
So dairy products, meats, processed food, very processed food in general. So all that is going to feed into your intoxication. So that's
Mm.
the bad news. You're going to be attracted to your kryptonite.
Right.
The good news is that you're going to be attracted to your best medicine as well.
Mm-hmm.
The medicine being in the world of plants when they're unprocessed and raw. So
Mm.
you're going to be attracted to the foods, to the fruits and vegetables, raw fruits and vegetables that are the best for you.
Mm.
Give you an example. Somebody who's very acidic, like type 1 diabetics,
Mm-hmm.
they love kiwis.
Mm.
They love pineapple.
All right.
They love acidic fruits
Mm-hmm.
because the acids in these fruits are acids that are very soluble, number one,
Mm-hmm.
and they help the body displace the insoluble ones that are a problem for the body. So it's not a question of acids and bases, of alkaline and acid acidity. It's a question: is this acid soluble in vivo or not?
Okay. So
Because you can
that's
have an
actually good that they're eating kiwis and they're
yes,
acidic
yes, it
because
helps
it's
the body
helping.
cleanse that out.
Yeah, makes sense.
So they're going to be attracted to the medicine. And if you, it's not a question of acid and base. So basically, vinegar, for instance, like vinegar is an acid.
Mm-hmm.
It's very soluble outside of the body.
Yeah.
Different story in the body. It tends to precipitate with calcium, with magnesium, because of the nature of the soup that is your body. It
Okay.
will precipitate and make crystals that your body cannot get rid of.
So even apple cider vinegar.
So that's an interesting one
Okay.
because apple cider vinegar has ethanoic acid, which is the
Right.
same as regular vinegar,
Right.
white vinegar or wine vinegar. But it has another acid, which is another very interesting one, which is the malic acid.
Right. Yeah.
And malic acid is excellent to solubilize and break down any
Crystals.
type of stones. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So gallbladder stones especially.
Mm.
It's a great way of making these gallbladder stones more soluble and sort of making them break apart.
Mm-hmm.
So apple cider vinegar is kind of like a two-head thing. So it is interesting for people who have a very toxic type of diet. People
Mm-hmm.
who eat pasta and ham every night or every day.
Right.
Of course, when they get apple cider vinegar, it's going to be better for them.
Right.
So it always depends on when you start from. Same thing. If these people who eat only pasta and ham every night with butter or ketchup or whatever or cheese, all
Right.
of a sudden, if you give them yogurt, it's going to be better because it's a live food. It's going to be better for them than what they used to.
Okay.
But this is still an acid generating food. So you're going to plateau at some point. And for
Okay.
people who are already eating raw foods or already past that, doing a good job of making their lives better by changing their diet,
Mm-hmm.
apple cider vinegar is a bad idea.
Okay.
You're better off actually making green apple juices
Okay.
to cleanse your liver. So you're probably familiar with Andreas Moritz's protocol for the liver cleanse,
Right.
the clock cleanse, or Moritz's cleanse. I encourage everybody to read that book. It's an amazing book, and if you're not interested,
What's the name of the book? It's called The
uh,
Moritz Cleanse.
something like that. But I know that in French it's called. I'll do the bad translation. It's like the wonderful or fabulous liver and gallbladder cleanse. Something
Okay.
like that. Maybe it
Yeah.
has a different name in English. I don't know.
Right.
But it's an American a doctor, so it won't be difficult to find his work. And And I think he has a few videos hanging
And you were
around.
saying he was the one that worked with Hulda Clark, you think?
Yeah.
You believe? Okay. Yeah, cool. Yeah.
So he so you can use apple cider vinegar. It's going to be better for some people, but you're still adding so much of that ethanoic acid that is precipitating mineral in your body. Then it's not a very good food.
Yeah.
Vinegar
Okay.
is not bad. Like a lot of stuff in medicine, it's a question of doses. It's a dosage.
Right.
And vinegar has its function. It can be used for certain purposes
Right.
as a medication, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not a staple food. If you're going to need to acidify any type of food, you're better off using something that is actually alkaline generating, like lemon. Lemon is acidic when you taste it, but it does displace these bad acids, so to speak.
Right.
And citric acid is part of the Krebs cycle, so it's recycled very easily by the system, and you're able to recycle ketones more because you have these citric acids in the body. So it always depends on where you start, and this is one of the reasons I'll never tell a nutritionist that who who tells people to eat, dairy products, it's a good thing for them. I'm not going to tell them, and if that person tells me, oh, I have great results, I'm never going to tell them they're wrong, because
Right.
it depends what the person,
Needs.
where these people start, and who that person is actually helping out,
Right.
right?
Like
So
if someone needs a certain bacteria for their gut, then maybe raw goat's milk will help them.
maybe,
Yeah.
maybe, and who am I to say the opposite? That's probably what the person needs.
Right.
But we need to start thinking of health as a path, and it's something that and it's a path where you cleanse your body, you go towards the most adequate food, which is, for the primates that we are, fruits.
Right.
So as primates, and as great apes, basically, not just primates, with great apes. So there's a different category of primates.
Right.
Our diets consist mainly of like 80% fruit, 80 to 90% fruit, and 10 to 20% vegetables. So
Right.
vegetables are leaves, they are tender roots,
Right.
they are bulbs, so leeks and onions and garlic,
Yeah.
and there are flowers, so cauliflowers, artichoke, um, broccoli.
Right.
So these are vegetables.
Yeah.
Everything else is a fruit.
Gotcha.
A fruit is the part of the plant, is it the organ of the plant that contains the seeds.
Right.
So you have the sweet fruit that everybody knows, mangoes and bananas and all that.
Right.
You have the tart fruits, berries and stuff like that, and kiwis and pineapple.
Right.
Pineapple is a little weird because it's a weird fruit. It
Yeah.
doesn't really come from a
I
flower.
I drank a lot of pineapple juice and it destroyed my gut at one time. Like
Yeah,
I'm like scared to do it now.
yeah, we'll talk about it a little later if you want.
All right.
So pineapple, great for your prostate, by the way.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, so pineapple. Oh, so sweet fruits, tart ones or acidic ones, non-sweet fruits. So bell pepper, cucumbers, tomatoes, um, eggplants, zucchini,
Mm.
um, pumpkin. All these are fruits.
Yeah. Now, what about people that have an issue? Like for whatever reason, I started to have an issue with the nightshades,
Hmm.
and so what I've been told is that can cause production of uric acid. So like the eggplants, the tomatoes, potatoes, um, peppers.
So, okay. So what you need to understand is that when people start making things like um, kidney stones and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
it's not because what they're eating. I'm talking about raw plants right now, right?
Right.
I'm not talking about cooked food. That's a different story.
Okay.
But talking about raw plants, they will trigger the release of stones from your kidneys.
Gotcha.
Stones that were already there.
Gotcha.
If you go on a juice cleanse, like if you go on a juice cleanse when you're gonna drink a lot of what's that called again? The it's wheatgrass. If you
Yes.
drink a lot of wheatgrass
Yeah.
and your kidneys are littered with kidney stones,
Yeah.
you will go through a
Detox.
gigantic crisis where everything is released all at once, and you'll go through like the worst nightmare of your life.
Yeah.
And people will tell you, "Oh, you have all that raw vegetable juices. That's what caused because of the oxalic acid. It caused the kidneys to happen. That the kidney stone happening. This is not the case.
Yeah.
Oxalic acid, of course, precipitates outside of the body. It does precipitate with certain minerals. That's true,
Right.
but it's not what caused the kidney stones from happening. They were already there.
Yeah.
What happened is that taking that green juice um, uh, got rid of all the mucus that was actually holding these stones together,
Gotcha.
and then it released. So that's one of the reasons when people are very acidified, I tend to tell them, so they're gonna drink juices and stuff, but I tend to tell them that they need to alkalinize you need to put a lot of alkaline matter in their bodies. They're going to start cleansing with magnesium salts like magnesium hydroxide
Right.
to start getting rid of the stones uh, enough that when the mucus comes out, it doesn't
Kill
trigger.
them.
Yeah, it doesn't. They just don't break in half,
Yeah.
right? If you
So
go
like
too
a
fast,
slow detoxing. Yeah, because people
so
can really die from
yeah. Oh
too
yeah.
too
Again,
fast
if it's
detox.
blocked,
Yeah.
if the expulsion of residues is too quick, the body is blocking the process.
Hmm.
And if you can't help the body, then yeah, you can die.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often, but I
Right.
mean, at least it's going to be ridiculously painful,
Yeah.
and then that's going to prevent the person from doing that ever again.
Right. Headaches, fevers,
Yeah.
like aches, pains. Yeah. Okay.
So my point is that I'm not against modern medicine. I'm just saying that modern medicine is an emergency medicine that is taking its role way too far and thinking that it's a
Right.
terrain medicine.
Yeah.
It's not. It's just not. And when somebody goes through detox, somebody has like a bad case of bronchitis or bad case of diarrhea or something or eczema or boils or whatever it is.
Right.
If they don't know how to help the body, I'd rather have them stop it.
Yeah.
I'd rather have them go to the emergency room or go to the doctors, take antibiotics, anti this, anti that.
Right.
Because to me, this is emergency
Mm-hmm.
to buy you time until you're able to help the body do what it needs to do.
Right.
So I'm totally okay with that. And for some of my patients, for instance, if they go through a crisis and for some reason I'm in a retreat somewhere where there's no phone connection, and they're going through a crisis, although they have a crisis a protocol that they need to go through.
Mm-hmm.
If it sometimes it's a protocol that's going to be tailor-made for them, but it's not going to be applicable in every single situation. And usually when they go through crisis is because they didn't cleanse.
Right.
If you cleanse properly, you never see the shade of a crisis.
Gotcha.
Because you help the body cleanse very
Slowly.
slowly,
Yeah.
and
It's just like training.
yeah, same
Like when
thing.
people come in, if I just like killed them, they would never want to come back. They'd never want to
Exactly.
train. It's like
Yeah,
little steps. Yeah.
exactly. So when I tell people, look, you can, um, if for some reason I'm not available, go to the doctors, go to the emergency room, stop the crisis that you're not able to get rid of,
Yeah.
and then first thing Monday morning, try to get in touch with me. And if you get in touch with me, then I tell you, okay, now that you're in touch with me, you start your antibiotics. You're going to take this, and that instead,
Yeah.
and that's totally okay.
Yeah.
right? So for me, there's a role for modern medicine, and it's an emergency role. Sometimes you have no other choice but to do something to stop something
Yeah.
because you don't have the energy, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have um, the the resources to do what needs to be done,
Right.
and I'd rather you stop the process because you just don't know what to do
Right. Yeah.
until you
So
find someone who can help you.
yeah, and that's like Western medicine is the best at that. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, if you're in an
yeah,
emergency situation, here you go. And I appreciate that. My intestine twisted. I almost died. Um, but the inverse of that is I ended up in the situation I was in because of Western medicine. So it's like this catch-22.
right.
And
Because you went in the first time because the modern medicine, instead of treating the cause, was just treating the symptoms when it actually wasn't an emergency in the first place, but
right,
just kept treating the symptoms. So you went into a situation where your body was like, no, I still want to cleanse, and then it came to a really bad crisis you because of your job and because your sports was always part of your life and because of your own genetic constitution,
right,
genetic makeup, you had the strength to keep trying to cleanse yourself. And then modern medicine came in and instructed once more, and that was the end of it for you.
right.
That's kind of
And
sort of what happened.
I think it's important to mention just on here while we're talking about like the epigenetics and the genetics. So you were talking about like your ancestral genetics, and
Yeah,
essentially you can be passed on um, this genetic um, kind of profile.
yeah,
And in that profile, there might be the latent gene for a certain disease expression,
yeah,
right? And if you eat bad food and you're exposed to toxins, that gene expression will be turned on.
yeah,
Whereas if you're healthy and you're eating the right foods, that
yeah.
gene expression will be triggered off.
Right.
And then
Or
epigen,
it's not gonna be factoring in a way. Not
right,
necessarily gonna be turned off, but it's gonna be offset by something else.
right. There will be no dis-ease.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So when I hear, it made me sad actually. When I hear Angelina Jolie getting her double mastectomy just because she felt like she had the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes, I'm like,
Yeah.
just change your diet and keep your breast.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, to me that's more like a stunt to tell the world. Uh,
maybe.
well, I don't want to get into that, but
Yeah,
that's
but
like that. But so I want to be respectful of your time because I could sit here
sure.
and talk to you all day, honestly.
Yeah.
Um, but so real quick, kind of the theme of this is healing hackers,
Yeah.
and so how is it that you give the body what it needs, and what does the body need? So like real quick, kind of synopsis of how you get people to express the right genes and feel good and heal the body.
Breath work, number one. Uh, um, food. So I talk about nourishment. I don't talk about nutrition. I don't care about nutrition.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very important to look at that word, nourishment.
Mm-hmm.
If you dissect the word, it's nourish, so it has to do with making something grow.
Mm-hmm.
Ment, that suffix is it's
The
not,
mind.
I mean, yeah, it's the mind,
Yeah.
mentis.
Yeah.
So in French, actually, all our adverbs finish by ment.
Right.
All our adverbs. So whenever you use an adverb, is for example, um, uh, kindly would be gentiment. It's putting kindness in the mind.
Mm.
In French, that's how it works. So it means a lot in a way that in our culture, everything has been put in the mind. By the way.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, so nourishment is making the mind grow. It's not about making your body grow.
Yeah.
The body's gonna grow anyway.
Right.
It's making your mind grow, your soul. So your mind and your body, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a holistic thing. So I don't
Right.
care about nutrition. I care about nourishment.
Yeah.
So nourishment is about going towards the food that actually going to make your body grow, your emotions healthy, and your mind grow.
Right.
Second thing. Third thing rest. I teach people to rest. I give them kind of like I don't tell them to go to bed at 10 every night, because it's not, most of the time uh, it's not something that is that they can do.
Right.
But I give them little tricks to do what something I called a sleeping cure. So they'll one day of the week they go to bed super early. And
Mm-hmm.
when I mean super early is like 6 p.m.
Wow.
The one day of the week they can do that.
Yeah.
They're going to use essential oil so that their mind just is not triggered and is able to let go, and the body can rest. And they might wake up maybe at 10, and then they take the essential oils again to have the body relax again, and they'll finish their night.
Mm-hmm.
The Chinese medicine teaches you that actually, the ancients used to say that every hour you sleep before midnight counts double.
Okay.
And Chinese
I've
medicine
heard that.
tells you,
Yeah.
yeah, Chinese medicine tells you why. Your, um, I always get that one wrong, but it doesn't matter. If it's not one, it's the other. Your uh, adrenal glands recharge according to the Chinese medicine, your adrenal glands recharge between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m.
Mm.
Your thyroid recharges between 7 p.m. and 9 p.m.
Mm.
So you're going to be recharged as you sleep in these hours. You're going to be recharging two glands, well, three glands, but two sets of glands that are, that are really important in the management of your energy.
Mm-hmm.
So, in terms of access to energy and a release of energy. So it's a very subtle difference, but both of these sets of glands are able to do that. So you recharge these glands. So when somebody does that sleep cure, so the essential oils involved are important because it's difficult to do it without, to be very frank, because it's a kind of an artificial type of thing.
Right.
But because they're able to do that, even if they go to bed and they sleep like 4 hours a night
Mm-hmm.
the following week, they're going to be fine in the morning.
Right.
So I don't encourage them to do that, of course, but
Right.
I'll tell them, just do that so that you consolidate that third pillar, the
Mm-hmm.
rest one.
Yeah.
It's the sleep, but it's not just the sleep, it's resting,
Yeah.
which means that take time off, take
Right.
time off to do other things,
Right.
and not take time off to work out necessarily, take time off to do nothing and
Yeah.
be okay with doing nothing.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're just in bed and just like look at your ceiling, and that's what meditation helps you to be okay with not doing anything.
Right.
And it could be just have a walk on the park. I tell people actually to practice grounding when they're resting. So I tell them, go you have a park next to you or woods or something, take your shoes off, go walk for half an hour.
Right.
That's the best antidepressant.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
the
that's
first time
one
I tell
thing
people.
actually I wanted to touch on too when you were talking about, we eat fruits and vegetables,
Yeah.
and we're electrical beings.
Yep.
And so we need electrical food that's
Yeah.
alive,
Yeah.
right? And so connecting with the live food, connecting with the
Yeah.
ground, doing the
Yeah.
grounding, you can
Yeah.
actually see in the background that I
Yeah.
have
Yep.
the
I saw
electrical
that. Yeah.
machine.
Yeah.
Um,
You can't pretend being and keep a healthy life and being a living human being if you only eat dead food. At some
right.
point, something it's not gonna
Gonna
compute,
break. Yeah.
and that's the reason why, for example, in terms of, I mean, you've learned that, I'm sure. A normal healthy male, adult male, should eat about 2,500 calories per day.
Right.
If they work out, they might go up to 3,500.
Yeah.
But that's the equivalent calories you need to be able to keep yourself a living human being with cooked food.
Mm-hmm.
When you eat raw food, you eat much less than that.
And it gets absorbed.
After, yeah, after you've cleansed, of course, because at first your body just gonna start compensating for all the deficiencies it's been carrying along. So you're
Yeah.
gonna eat like a ton for the first 3-4 months. It's gonna be like, oh my god, my nut budget goes crazy.
Yeah.
But then it's gonna, especially if you cleanse regularly, your
Right.
body's gonna start being like, okay, I have all I need, and just eat this and that, and you'll be fine. My
Yeah.
my brother is a CrossFitter and he eats raw food all the time.
Wow.
and his wife actually. Both of them are CrossFitters. They go to CrossFit like 5 times a week, and they're fine,
Wow. Yeah.
right? So because they've cleansed, and now the body is on autopilot, and they can get. I run every day, less now, but I used to run much more than I do,
Yeah.
and I work out, and I get by with 1,500 calories a day.
Wow.
And if I work out a little more or something, or then I might eat a little more.
Yeah.
But when I stop working out, I just stop eating.
Right.
So you're very much in tune with your body. So that the third pillar is the rest, which is going to be important,
Yeah.
and the fourth is eliminating, and this is where cleanses are important. And I know in America they're not very popular. I love Dr. Morse's work. He does an amazing. That he's an anti, purges and cleanses.
Right.
The reality is that uh, if you have a very solid body, you'll be okay with not without cleansing, because your body, you're going to go through crises, but
Yeah.
with the help of plants, you'll be fine.
Okay.
When your body is weaker, it's going to be really tough for your body to expel whatever it needs to expel, and you need to help it.
Yeah.
And all of these purges, all of these cleanses, they've been used for ages, and they are. This is how we get people out of crises. And instead of going through a crisis, it's going to last for like you know a week or two. Within a few hours, it's over,
Wow.
and
Really?
your body has expelled everything. And I'm the first one who experienced that. When I tell people to take castor oil or stuff like that,
Yeah.
I know why I tell them that, because I've been through it. I was going through like a crisis where I had bronchitis, and and I was told by Irene, my
Yeah.
mentor. She told me, I was at her place, and I met her. It was during one of her workshops. I'd been coughing nonstop. I don't know if you ever had that, but I had a
This just
nonstop cough,
happened to me this last week, and it was the first time.
a nonstop cough for 4 days,
Yeah.
to the point where it hurt. And every time I was coughing, I felt like somebody was stabbing me,
Yeah.
and it was super painful. And I coughed like all the time.
Yeah.
And I talked to her during a workshop, and she said, "Well, now that you understand the mucus and the acids," I said, "But
Right.
what is it? What is it? Because I would think that the lungs are trying to expel mucus, but it's a dry cough." And she said, "You're probably too tired. Your body's not even able to form the mucus.
Yeah.
So it's irritating."
Yep.
By the way, that happened after a 3-week juice cleanse. And every time I did the 3-week juice cleanse, the day after, the first thing that happened was a fever.
Mm.
I never understood that. It took me time to understand. Once I understood what Irene was trying to say, once I went to a workshop, I understood it. But I started with a fever at 4 o'clock in the morning, like clockwork. I did how many of these 3-week juice cleanse, and like clockwork, first thing that happened, big
Fever.
fever, 4 in the morning,
Yep.
drenching the sheets.
Yep.
I would
Basically
manage the
killing off.
yeah.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
expelling a lot of stuff, so you're expelling acid, so you're gonna have fever,
Yeah.
and then dealing with the fever all day. And then the next day, I would start taking essential oils, and I would start coughing, mucus and stuff would come out, either the nose or the lungs or something.
Mm-hmm.
And because I use essential oils within a matter of 24 to 48 hours, over, done, finished,
Yeah.
because you help the body expel really fast.
Right.
But this time was different. It was just before I went to a workshop, and it was that dry cough, and I didn't get it. And she said, "Well, you're probably too tired. Maybe you didn't sleep enough that week or something, and then your body wasn't able to form the mucus. So now it's stuck there, and it feels like you're coughing and you're wheezing and everything." And I said, "What should I do?" She said, "Well, Ted, you heard what I said this afternoon. You can take essential oils. You can take castor oil instead." So there's a whole protocol with castor oil. I
Right.
would never encourage somebody who's never taken it to just take it willy nilly. You have to
Yeah.
understand how it works.
Yeah.
But anyway, she told me, "Well, instead of having dinner, just take that."
Yeah.
I did. So mind you, I was coughing all the time.
Yeah.
By the time I went to the bathroom the first time, it was maybe an hour later. The minute I went to the bathroom, my cough stopped, and
So
all the
all the
mucus was in
process
the
that.
toilet.
Wow.
And of course, when I was like, "This is weird. This is nothing. This is nothing I learned in medical school."
Yeah.
And of course I said, where do I sign? This is amazing.
Yeah.
As a former uh, asthma patient, I was like, why didn't anybody tell me this? Knowing that my mom grew up with castor oil,
Yeah.
my parents grew up with castor oil. It was a regular thing to use in the Caribbean.
Right.
And I was the one who needed it the most, and my mom, because she suffered from it so much, she felt like she didn't want me to go through that,
Yeah.
but it would have been the best medicine for me,
Right.
actually.
So like my
So
son so it's interesting to hear all this stuff because my son had a lot of what you explained. Like he had a strep throat and we didn't want to give him medication. And finally people like pressured us like, hey, all this crazy stuff can happen. We gave him antibiotics. It was like a shock to his system. He kind of changed a little bit emotionally. He had
yeah.
then he started like crying and having like tantrums and would cry for like bananas and like he would freak out for bananas. And he had like a little change in it. I don't want to say he was autistic, but he had like, he's not even close to it, but he'd have these like little idiosyncrasies that went in that direction slightly. And now he has, every time he's got a gut issue, which is usually from the food, he starts to get the cough.
Yeah.
And he has inflammation in the gut.
Yeah.
And so, well, one of the questions I have, which I've already asked you, and this is something that you can tell people who are going to listen to this, is in that situation, how do you go about doing something and how can they work with you if they're interested? Do you work with people overseas and through Skype?
I do, through Skype. I do, yeah.
Okay.
I do that to Skype. Right now, my material is still in translation, so I'm still translating all my material that I give people after a Skype session.
Oh, okay.
So right now everything is in French, so it's not going to help a lot of English speakers. But I'm in the middle of doing that. It's going to be ready by the end of the month.
Cool.
But yeah, that can be done through Skype. It's very important to understand the whole acid and mucus thing, so
Okay.
that people don't freak out. Kids are fairly, unless they're unless they have a lot of medical issues like diabetes and stuff like that, that is more difficult, because it's difficult, you as when you have a kid, then the problem is not the kid, is the fear of the parents.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you can't, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying that's
Yeah.
going to be the hindrance, and the parents are going to start doing things that are counterproductive just because they're run by fear. And
Yeah.
and fear comes because you don't know stuff.
Right.
And this is one of the reasons I really encourage people to take classes for like essential oils,
Mm-hmm.
plants, plant medications, stuff like that. Just take classes. There are classes everywhere.
Yeah.
And learn how to use plants to heal yourself. Learn how to use essential oils to heal yourself. And you can do a lot already, even with kids. You can do a lot. And of course, they're going to tell you not to use essential oils with kids, not to use essential oils with pregnant women. And I think it's a big, giant joke. Of course, you should know what you're doing. You're
Right.
not going to just give anyone any type of essential oils,
Right.
obviously.
Right.
You to understand the safety issues that come with it. But that's like everything. That's like same thing with using a knife, right?
Right. It's funny because they say like, don't use this essential oil, but we'll inject your kids with poisons from vaccines and
And
we'll give them antibiotics.
pregnant women who get chemo when they're pregnant,
Right.
and they have no problem with that. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah. I know. It's crazy.
Yeah. No
Yeah.
essential oil has never killed anybody.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So I've seen people like a kid who like a toddler who found a tea tree bottle and drank the whole thing, and the parents went to the emergency room like, oh, you drank the whole thing, and the kid was fine.
Yeah.
Like it you have to understand that except for certain essential oils that are very, very powerful
Right.
and have to be used with caution, like oregano is one.
Right.
Uh,
Or
and
like wintergreen or something like that. Right.
wintergreen is one. Oregano
Yeah.
is one. Cinnamon is one.
Yeah.
So these you have to know what you're doing. They're not very dangerous, but you have to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Most of the others are pretty cool. Like you have to know that you never put them in your eye,
Yeah.
and you never put them on your genitals. Although some of them you can, and they
Yeah.
won't even hurt.
Yeah.
Um, and you don't, and there are certain things, and some, like all the citrus family, you never put on your skin and go in the sun.
Right.
That's gonna burn your skin.
Right.
And you're never gonna put something like cinnamon on your skin. You're not gonna put it in your bath.
Yeah.
Certain things you need to know.
Right.
Certain essential oils are totally mild, like lavender. You can totally put that in your bath.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's gonna be just fine.
Right.
Never put mint or cinnamon in your bath. That's a bad idea.
Yeah.
Very bad idea. Mint you might suffer from hypothermia with mint in your bath.
Oh, really?
Just saying. Yeah.
Like
So
in a warm bath or in a cold
yeah,
bath?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, yeah,
really?
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Huh.
Yeah,
Interesting.
it's bad. So
Yeah.
don't do that. So yeah, you have to understand how to use them, and then when you start, so there's one of the best aromatherapists in France. His name is Daniel Penoel, Penoel.
Mm-hmm.
He travels a lot around America. He's done amazing work on essential oils. He's been talking about it in, like, all around the world. He developed a way of looking at essential oils that's called quantum aromatherapy,
Mm.
and I'm pretty sure his book has been translated in English because he speaks English. So um, if you want to learn more about this, read his books. Another French guy, because it's a French specialty, actually, aromatherapy.
Right. Yeah.
It's Baudou, so Baudaux,
Okay.
Dominique, and that's his first name. Uh, Amazing books. If you don't know anything about it, just read his books. He gives recipes for this and that, and try it and see. Like, for little ailments of every day, it will
Yeah.
work,
Yeah.
and you
I
won't
mean,
need
I,
anything else.
I've used essential oils on almost everything, and when I found out how powerful they were, because I was poisoned by an antibiotic,
Yeah,
Avalox. I
uh,
researched and found this formula for what they call a flux
yeah,
detox.
yeah.
And I took the essential oils, and as soon as I took it, I basically passed out. And I woke up and I felt like rested and better. And I was like, oh my
Uh,
God,
uh,
these things are real medicine. And
uh,
ever since then, I've used them and researched, and I use them for my kids all the time now. So yeah, it's the
yeah,
powerful stuff.
yeah. And once you know how to use them, uh, it's wonderful. I don't need anything else. I mean, my parents have had some teeth removed because they started, even though they changed the diet, but after 60 years of eating like Caribbeans eat, even though my
Yeah.
parents were pretty careful about what we ate and not eat too much fried stuff, that
Right.
Caribbeans love that.
Right.
Still, a lot of starches and everything, and
Yeah.
so they had to have some teeth removed and stuff, like in the back, and normally you get antibiotics before and antibiotics after, and I said, no, we're just gonna give you essential oils for
Yeah.
the same amount of time,
Right.
and that was it, and no infection. And even the dentist was like, wow, you're healing really quickly. That's
Yeah.
weird.
It
That
stimulates the healing process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Cool. So
yeah,
let's wrap it up here, because I know
yeah.
we've been on and I appreciate your time. So if someone wanted to work with you, how would they get to work with you?
So once I get the whole the whole website and stuff put together, they can reach me by phone or Skype or WhatsApp or something. Right now it's not really ready yet, but
Okay.
as soon as it is, then I'll let you know.
Gotcha.
And yeah, they can get in touch with me, and we can set up consults over on Skype. And um, but in the meantime, let's not forget that you have already excellent healers in the United States, and I'm thinking about Dr. Morse and all the people he's been training.
Right.
You'll get stellar, um, uh, stellar help and service from people from the Morse constellation, I should say.
Okay.
So that I think proximity is king here. I think you
Yeah.
need to understand that the grass is not necessarily greener
Yeah.
elsewhere,
Right.
and there's a very the everybody's been trained by Dr. Morse. They do amazing work,
Yeah.
and a good thing is that they're close to you. They speak your own language.
Right.
You, they everything that you need to purchase or whatever is very accessible. They do great work. There's, you can talk to them over the phone regularly if there's an issue.
And what's the full name?
So,
So Dr. Morris is
Robert Morse.
Robert Morris, and it's
Uh,
Morris.
no, Morse. So you have Andreas Moritz,
Okay.
one guy with the liver cleanse.
Okay. Yep.
Moritz.
Yep.
Andreas. That's the liver cleanse guy, which
Yeah.
I recommend you read the book if you haven't yet.
Okay.
And then Dr. Morse, Robert Morse, Morse,
It's E.
who's
Okay.
in Florida, as a matter of fact.
Oh, okay. So not too far.
And you can train with him. He has on his website. You can go and you can do either distance learning, or you can go and learn at his where he is. I think he's in Jacksonville, actually.
Oh, okay.
I
Not too
think,
far.
but
Yeah.
I think it's in Florida on the Caribbean coast.
Yeah.
Is yeah, you proximity, I think, is key here. You
Yeah.
have
I
to
mean,
have somebody who's
Jacksonville's like
available.
2 hours away from me. So
Yeah, so yeah, I think it's a good thing to be close to your caregiver.
yeah. Okay.
So I'm not saying that people shouldn't contact me. I'm just
Right.
saying that
There's other options.
there are other options that are very good options, excellent options
Yeah.
in America. And I'm really talking about Dr. Morse specifically.
Yeah.
You have
Okay.
others, but Dr. Morse and Dr. Moritz as well. And if you're not sure about how to change your diet, there you can look at what's his name, John Kohler's videos.
Okay.
John Kohler, Kohler.
Okay.
He has tons of videos on YouTube
Right.
about health, nourishment, not nutrition,
Okay.
and permaculture and stuff like that. Like, he teaches you how to grow your own food, and he
Okay.
has amazing work all across the board. So this guy as well to check out, and he has very good videos about health and how you need to get nourishment from what you're eating. Uh,
Awesome. Okay.
yeah, so you have
Okay.
very good options in America, and you're not left alone.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people. I go down to Costa Rica, and there's like healers that are like hiding up in the mountains and stuff, and you can just, I'm just amazed by them. But so any last closing words or healing hacks that people can do that just will stimulate the healing process?
I think first of all, if you wouldn't put it in your mouth, don't put it on your skin.
Good one.
Just saying.
Yep.
Um, that's number one. Number two, I would say if you're trying to if you don't plan on changing anything in your diet, at least cleanse your liver once a month.
Okay.
Do the Clark cleanse or the Moritz cleanse, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Do that once a month.
Yeah.
That's all you need to do.
Okay.
And you'll see, the funny part is that as you do that, your diet will change.
Yeah. You'll crave different things.
Yep.
Okay.
So it's going to be something that comes from your body. So it's going to be very natural.
Yeah.
You're not going to feel like you're missing out or whatever. You're going to want to eat what you're eating. You've seen me eat, right?
Right.
And from the outside, it looks like, well, you're starving yourself or you're not enjoying whatever it is. It's like, no, I'm totally into what I'm eating right now.
Yeah.
And I don't want to eat anything else. So
Yeah.
that's number two. Number three is, I would say, learn to nourish yourself before you fill yourself. Go for nourishment before you go for filling. And so first thing you need to do, without even telling yourself, I need to eat raw food, I need to eat vegan food, whatever, just tell yourself, I'm going to start my day by eating fruits. Because that's what I'm supposed to eat.
Mm-hmm.
And before every single meal, I'm going to be eating fruits.
Mm.
Even if it's cooked food,
Yeah.
even if there's meat in it and there's milk product or whatever, eat things that are good for you first.
Mm-hmm.
So reverse what we've been doing by eating fruit. If we think about it, and at the end of the meal,
Right.
do it first and
Yeah.
eat the foods that you love the most. Because
Yeah.
facing a plant-based raw food item,
Mm-hmm.
your instinct is always right. Your instinct is going to flip and go wrong when what you're presenting your body is non-plant based and it's cooked. It's going to go the other way around. So just give your body what it needs first,
Yeah.
and you'll see what happens. It
Yep.
will change, and you won't have to think about it
Right.
until your body is ready to cleanse. And that's probably another story. We can talk about crises and how that happened and everything, and I'll be more than happy to talk about it more. But in the first, that's what happens. A lot of people who go through raw food, they go to raw food for like 1 year, 2 years maybe, and then
Right.
the first crisis happened because they never cleansed,
Yeah.
and they don't understand, and they feel like, raw food almost killed me.
Yeah.
I probably had deficiencies, and I lost my teeth or whatever. Like, yeah, because you didn't cleanse, your body trying to find a way to expel the
Trying to
toxins,
expel it.
and
It
probably
came through
expel it
your
through your
mouth.
teeth.
Yeah. Cool.
So you have to understand that. So do these three things and see where it leads to. And again, you have plenty of excellent healers in America. So
Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time.
I
And
appreciate your trusting my input.
oh yeah, no, you have a unique background, so I love it because of where you come from and what you're doing now. I think it brings a lot of information together that people need to hear. So it's like there's not many people that have your experience and background and what you're doing. So it's very powerful. And yeah, I appreciate it. And I'll be in touch with you anyways. And
Awesome.
so yeah, thank you. And
Thank you, Ian.
I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Love you, brother.
Love you too, man.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.